Shalom party people, and welcome to the 12th C. So Hooter and Torah over on Instagram asks, what dietary tips do you have for continual growth / health in your physical journey? What has kept you at your best performance? So those of you who know Hooter and Torah are aware that he can afford to put on a few pounds. A friend of mine has said you got to be two something to do something, and I don't know if that is completely true or not, but I will say that Hooter and Torah is nowhere near in danger of being two something anytime soon. So Hoot, I'm going to approach this for a general overall health, and I know that your question has been more growth minded aspect, and for someone who needs to put on a few extra pounds of muscle, you got to do it right. If you just are bulking for the sake of bulking, like I knew coaches in high school who said, while you're lifting weights, you need to be eating bananas and ice cream. And I don't really know that that's the best idea. It's not that bananas are bad, but if you're eating ice cream by the gallons, what's the content of your muscle mass going to be made up of? And I just don't know that that's the healthiest approach. So yes, I'm going to be focused on a growth-minded set of nutrition, unlike the last set of advice that I was giving when Spicy Snafu was asking just how to keep the dietary stuff interesting. There's definitely overlapping fields of fire on this, but in general, Spicy Snafu's question was keeping things interesting, whereas Hoot is severely focused on growth-minded aspects of nutrition. So overlapping, but not exactly the same by any means. So first thing I want to say to you is going to be hydration. If you're not bringing in adequate amounts of water, there is going to be issues with anything that you do. Most people are severely dehydrated anyway. And there is something to dehydration training, but in general, you need to be onboarding as much water as you can stomach, because most people just don't drink enough water. If you're above the 2 gallon a day club, then okay, maybe let's look at a few other things, but most people aren't even anywhere near that camp. So in general, hydrate as much as you can. I would propose including a certain amount of hydration salts into what you're bringing in. I mentioned this in previous videos, but most people just don't get enough salt. And I will say consult with your physicians. But in general, if you are not bringing in a large amount of sugar into your diet, if you are staying as low sugar as you reasonably can, you can really uptake your salt input without worrying about retaining it, because your body's just going to get rid of what it doesn't need. So that is something that is noteworthy. I would recommend salt that hasn't been stripped of all of its other minerals. There's actually a brand called Real Salt that does this, and there's hydration that is specific in mind with having the appropriate amounts of natural salt, natural magnesium that the body needs. You will notice an increase in performance. You get all these people who are taking these supplements of like pre-workout boosters and just heavy amounts of caffeine. And it's not that caffeine's necessarily bad for pre-workout. It's just a better pre-workout is a proper electrolyte mix, because then it wakes your muscles up and allows them to do what they're supposed to do. So I would highly encourage hydration with the caveat of appropriate amounts of electrolytes that are good for your body added to it. You who probably don't need to worry about this too much, since you have weight to put on, but there is something about fasting that really, really does 10x your appreciation for food. And so if it's used right, you can actually bulk with fasting. That's something that you're going to need to play around with. I really wouldn't do anything extreme on your end. I would probably recommend something like an 8-hour eating window, so that way your body has time to, after a decent sized meal, to recover, and then it's like, hey, I've only got a few more hours that I can eat in this window, so I better eat and make it worth my while. You actually can bulk with fasting. It's just playing it right, because there's a lot of people who are in that 1 meal a day camp, and they physically can't eat enough calories in that eating window that they're in to matter for the rest of the day. So do a little bit of research in bulking with fasting. It will give you an appreciation for the food that you are eating. And it also kind of plays a mind game to where you're forcing yourself, hey, I am going to have to eat because I know I'm going to be hungry soon. So that kind of changes the game a little bit. Highly recommend 2 to 3xing your protein intake. In general, for sustaining the muscle mass that you have, you want like 1 to 1.25 grams of protein per pound that you weigh. I would say that if you're trying to bulk in like a clean bulk, I would steer you more towards the research of 2 to 2.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight that you are. That is just really going to allow your body to bulk appropriately. You get all these people who are like, oh, we're gonna take creatine and protein powder and all of these things, and those are good. Don't neglect having a good protein powder in your diet. Like really high quality protein powder is really good. I mean, you can get some low quality trash stuff that's quite literally just milk powder and sugar. And it's not that isn't protein, it's just not near as quality as some of the other isolates that are out there. Creatine's good. There's a lot of research that goes into it. It's one of the few supplements that has, like, I want to say 50 or 60 years of rock solid research behind it. So that is noteworthy. I would tell you that what's going to be better than most of the protein powders that are out there, about as high quality beef as you can afford, is going to be some of the best sources of protein for your body. You're going to pack protein on better with steak than you will with most protein powders. If you do a whole Greek yogurt, add your protein powder and then add like a beef collagen. I think Sam's Club sells a pretty reasonably priced Vital Proteins beef collagen. You mix your protein powder, whole Greek yogurt, and that collagen in there, and most people have a hard time finishing one serving because you're talking in the 70 to 75 grams of protein in a very small package. Add a little bit of peanut butter to that, and my gosh, you're talking really good fats for your body. You're talking high protein and really good flavor, which is where the peanut butter comes into place for me. I think I've had a variant of it that was over 95 grams of protein in like a 2.5 cup serving. So really high density protein. It's rich, and like I said, for a lot of people, it's hard to finish. That's a meal in and of itself. But 2 to 3xing your protein, you will notice as you are working, because if you're not working out, it's not really going to do you any good, but you will notice as you are working that added protein is doing your body good. You will pack on healthy pounds doing that. I would highly encourage you eating your reds and your greens as far as vegetables are concerned. If you are ingesting an appropriate amount of red vegetables and an appropriate amount of green vegetables, your body is getting the micronutrients that you really are going to have a hard time getting anywhere else. There are supplements that are specifically for your reds and your greens, and a lot of them are good. Like, just watch your quality, watch your ingredients. But in general, like, there's more vitamin C in bell peppers than there's going to be in an orange. So think about that and how you get your daily nutritional intake. If you are getting, especially vegetables that you grow yourself, the nutrition that's in them is really going to be hard to meet just about anywhere else. You should be eating a reasonable amount of vegetables, probably more than you think you should. that really makes it hard in the bulking journey because there's not a lot of calories, there's not a lot of carbs, there's not hardly any protein in vegetables. So you are getting into this, I'm putting this in my body and it's filling my stomach, and it's not giving me the caloric gains that I'm trying to get. It's just causing me to be full and not allowing me to look into what I need to look into. I would say long-term sustainable growth, one meal should have a reasonable amount of vegetables, reds and greens in them, and have some sort of a high protein aspect to what you're eating to balance that out. Every other meal is where you probably should be looking into that supplementation of a good quantity of like a red and green, supplement powder or whatever. Especially if you're trying to do like the drink mixes that are red and green focused. So that way you can, number one, give yourself a little bit of flavor, because I know I push water on people, but yeah, there's a lot of people who just don't like the flavor. So that is something to consider. But all in all, you want to wake up feeling really good. That's where your reds and greens really play into it, because they're giving your body what it actually needs to function and not just giving your body what it needs to survive. So take that with whatever you're gonna take that with. I'd say the last thing would be whatever breads you bring in, whatever grains, whatever cereals you bring in, I would look into the higher quality, non-GMO, no chemicals, no pesticides included. So like a clean wheat that is like freshly ground, that would be something that I think you're gonna 10x whatever's coming into your body. My wife and I, we have switched to milling our own wheat flour, and oh my gosh, the flavor is amazing, but it doesn't keep as long, and that's because it is substantially more natural. You get all these processed ones, all the stuff that has chemicals in it that do not belong in our bodies, and there is a noticeable difference in the performance that you get out of that. Should you be onboarding carbs into your diet? Of course you should. I would just make sure that they are carbs that are worthwhile and not, empty carbs. So clean wheat, 100%. Reds and greens, you need to have that in your body. 2 to 3 extra protein for sure. Like I said, I would be careful with it, but I would look into fasting to bulk. And that would be a longer eating window than some of these intermittent fastings that people throw out there. And then obviously, like we hit on, hydration, and that includes hydration with your appropriate salts. Go do hard things.